I believe the realest part of any pursuit, any activity that people do is actually sort of the invisible connective tissue that exists between more solid, calcified, crystallized aspects of whatever we're doing. Now, that's a wordy, kind of ambiguous way of saying the things that we value most are the things that we can see the easiest. And it's what's empirical, what's measurable, somebody who's maybe a specialist in a specific given domain. And I think my hypothesis is that that's downstream from the specialization that our economic structures took on, where being really hyper specialized in one thing was the sort of best aim to work towards. But what gets lost is that invisible, kind of immeasurable fabric between these specific points that really holds everything together. And in physics, we can think of this as like dark matter and dark energy, where we can see that there are planetary bodies, there's matter, and there are energy systems and stars and black holes and all these things, but they're held together in a way that we can't fully understand. And that's where most of the work, most of the mastery of anybody I've worked with, that's really what you see. In sales, it may look like the difference between dealing with a sales script and you have your specific points you're supposed to hit and specific questions you're supposed to hit, and you can go through and you can time the script, you can time your demonstration, you can have everything memorized and do it structurally correct, but still not have the right results, versus somebody who, on paper, they're doing the same things, but what's actually working is all of the, sometimes the things they're not saying. Sometimes it's the silences, the length of a pause, tone of voice, manner, predisposition, all these things that you can't really qualify, you can't really measure in martial arts or anything physical. If you look at a specific move set, a specific list of techniques or something you're supposed to do, on paper it may be, hey, here's 5 or 6 steps to pull off this sequence of moves or whatever it is. And everybody can get that same sequence. Everybody can sort of get the same recipe, reading out of a cookbook, but the skill of cooking is invisible. Not the Now the results are not invisible. You can absolutely tell if something's disgusting or something tastes great. But coming back to the martial arts example, now I can show people all these different moves and all these different things they can do. On paper, it's all identical. But what's going to make one person successful and the other person not is, again, all the invisible things that cannot really be measured or put on a spreadsheet or spoken about directly. And that's maybe your timing, your rhythm, your patience, your ability to pay attention to the other person and make reads, interpret what they're going to do, pay attention to yourself, realize when you're tired, when you're overextended, balance. How do you measure? You can measure something on a, like a fulcrum or whatever, I think that's the right word, where you can measure how balanced something is. But internally, the internal experience of balance, physically or emotionally, it's very hard to really it's hard to measure, and it's hard to turn that, the wisdom you get from those experiences, into actual information. So the way this looks for me and what I'm trying to do here is, there are specific positions I may have on something political or something religious, as well as you probably have too, and everybody does. But I think the aspect of what's happening that is the most underserved is that invisible connective component. Right now, I just kind of call all that, in terms of how humans deal with each other, I just call that the relationship fabric. Keeps everybody together. What kind of person are you? How do you treat other people? How do you take care of your family? How do you take care of yourself? What sort of internal and external dialogue do you cultivate around you? Those things are, this is, and I talk about Alice O'Connor quite a bit. Uh, Big fan of the guy, and he said something really interesting. He said that a lot of our moral debates and ethical debates are not really about morals and ethics. They're really just us going back and forth trying to hash out the facts of a given issue. We're arguing over the actual measurable facts of something. And I thought that was really interesting, and it's true. I agree with it. Um, and I think that again, coming back to that sort of nebulous aspect, the negative space of a work of art, all the stuff that is not readily, it, it's not just raw information, and so it's not as easy to grasp. It's a little more abstract, but I think that especially in the long run, you think about the human body in the long run, what usually fails, barring any sort of major injury or sickness, what usually starts to go out on people are the joints, is our ligaments and our tendons, the soft squishy parts of our back, of our spinal cord. That's usually what goes first. Usually people don't have an issue with the actual vertebrae itself. It's usually the disc, the spongy, soft connective tissue, sort of the middle children of whatever we're doing, is usually the part that suffers first. It's usually what's kind of neglected first, and it's unfortunate because that is actually what brings the most balance. And I don't know if it's intentional or just the natural way that Western civilization has gone, that the connective tissue between us has been dissolved and been disintegrated, and we've been atomized. Talk about it all the time. Um, I don't know if it's intentional and there's some top down plan or conspiracy to make that happen. I wouldn't be surprised. Or if it's just the way that life goes, it's just the way that you give humans what we have been given, and this is what they're going to do with it. Um, I will say, if there is some sort of top down conspiracy to isolate and atomize us, I would take an audit of yourself and think, if I am causing strife and friction and relational rot with the people around me, then they got you. They got you. And they've gotten me, they've gotten a lot of us, which is to isolate us and give us the opportunity not to connect with one another. But you probably already know all that.